perhaps some of the biggest news in America right now is the Hunter Biden laptop story. And we're going to get into this here just because we've had similar attacks in the media against us, and they're throwing those same attacks at this story as well. And they have been for over a year. So it really started, just to bring people back to get this record straight, it really started with the New York Post. They were originally reporting on a series. They had an expose of several stories from this laptop. The laptop was allegedly left in a Delaware computer repair store in 2019. The gentleman that owned that store turned it in, and the rest is history. This laptop has been producing evidence ever since. Smoking Gun email reveals how Hunter Biden introduced Ukrainian businessman to VP dad. This businessman was they call him a shady advisor, an oligarch to this oil company called Burisma in Ukraine. Well, what happened right after that? Remember, this is on the run up to the election. This was a very pivotal time in the Trump-Biden election cycle. Twitter and Facebook did some of their hardest censorship to date that we've ever seen. This is what the headline looked like here. Twitter, Facebook censor post over Hunter Biden expose. Facebook restricted the story. The fact checkers attacked it. Twitter went a step further. They locked the New York Post's account, and they blocked users from sharing links to the stories. I mean, you couldn't shut down a story any harder than that. And why did they do that? What gave them the credibility to do that? This is what it was. In Politico, this article talking about this letter, Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinfo. There it is. Dozens of former intel officials say. So they had more than 50 former intelligence officials signed a letter and saying it was casting doubt on whether this story was real. So here you have this story. A paper, one of the oldest papers in the United States, runs an expose, and you have a concerted effort by intelligence officials, CIA, Department of Defense, all coming out to kind of interject in the news cycle and say this is not true. And what did they say at that time? This is very interesting to the rest of the story we're going to report on. So this was their public statement. They released a concerted public statement on the Hunter Biden emails. And they said here, we want to emphasize that we do not know if the emails are genuine or not, and that we do not have evidence of Russian involvement. Just that our experience makes us deeply suspicious that Russian government played a significant role in the case. So there you have it. They didn't have any evidence. And why is this coming around? Why are we talking about?
And what I find interesting about this, because we tend to just let these headlines go by. But what I think about now, and we all know where this story is going because it's all over the news, and we're going to give it our spin and sort of get into our details. But when you look at former 50 intelligence officers, FBI, CIA, coming out and saying this is Russian disinformation. Every news media outlet is saying this is not true. It's fake news. It's Russian disinformation. And when I think about that, and I think behind the scenes, you have President Joe Biden, you have his son Hunter Biden, who both know for a fact that this is a true story. They are literally letting these reporters hang themselves. They're letting these CIA agents and FBI, former, government officials hang themselves on this story because it's inevitable. The truth will always come out. I mean, unless they're crazy enough to think that they could bury this. But when you look at that, I just want you to remember that as they are watching the same headlines we are, where people are putting their reputations on the line for this soon-to-be administration, all to sort of, push this story aside, these people, our current president, knew this was a lie and did not care how many people are going to hang themselves trying to protect him and his son. That's the part of this that really disturbs me when it comes to the integrity. I don't care what ends up being in there or what, but just the idea that you don't even have the integrity, that you would let other people dive on swords when the entire thing is your lie. That's what I find incredibly disturbing.
And the corporate legacy media, they're dwindling power, but still power. They were able to kind of crush this story and anybody that came close to it until just recently. And this is why this story is being resurrected. One of the reasons in the corporate media, the New York Times has admitted that this laptop was real. This is the headline: Hunter Biden paid tax bill, but broad federal investigation continues. There is a federal investigation going on with him involved in there and his business partners. But it says here in the article, people familiar with the investigation said prosecutors had examined emails between Mr. Biden, Mr. Archer, and others about Burisma and other foreign business activity. These emails were obtained by the New York Times from a cache of files that appears to have come from a laptop abandoned by Mr. Biden in a Delaware repair shop. The email and others in the cache were authenticated by people familiar with them and with the investigation.
Wow.
Now we enter one of the
So
people,
it's
I'm going to mention a
almost like a
couple.
side glancing view that caught this thing in the crosshairs, right? It was brought up in a courtroom. Are these your emails? Yes, I was a part of those emails. And those emails were on what was supposed to be a fake laptop. New York Times only has them because they had that laptop information. And so now it's been verified. These emails were inside of that, therefore, that we now know whose laptop this is. It's really interesting.
Yes. And those same emails were able to be verified by others who had reported on it and said they were verified. However, they were neutralized by the media and by these CIA operatives that were coming out with this letter. One of those who attempted to be neutralized but was not was Glenn Greenwald. He is an American journalist, and he was one of the founders of The Intercept.
And for people that
outlet.
maybe don't know the names, Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, I mean, he's been deeply involved in trying to get their stories out there. So this guy is sort of my kind of journalist, a guy who's really put it all on the line, come under incredible risk to share inconvenient stories about characters that may or may not be, how we want to hear this information, but really revealing lies and deceit coming from inside of our government. A very bold journalist, really one of the last of his kind. So I just want to put that out there. Glenn, if you're listening, I'm a fan.
And, The Intercept was kind of born out of his reporting of Edward Snowden, kind of wanting to get this truth out. And some of his board members, some of the people at The Intercept actually gave him some big issues and were trying to really, if you look into it, spike the story in a way. When he started originally reporting on this Hunter Biden laptop, it caused him to leave and start his reporting at Substack, which really was one of the biggest voices that went over there and started that off. And now he just wrote this article here, kind of coming around full circle. The New York Times now admits the Biden laptop, falsely called Russian disinformation, is authentic. And he says here in the byline, the media outlets which spread this lie from ex-CIA officials never retracted their pre-election falsehoods when used by big tech to censor that. So he says very few. These are all you talk about the media outlets. Very few even included the crucial caveat that the intelligence officials themselves stressed, namely that they had no evidence at all to corroborate this claim. Instead, as I noted last September, virtually every media outlet, CNN, NBC News, PBS, Huffington Post, The Intercept, and too many others account began completely ignoring the substance of what they're reporting and instead spread the lie over and over that these documents were the byproduct of Russian disinformation. And then sure enough, too, at Substack, we have Matt Taibbi. He is another prominent journalist. He's been around for a long time. And he put a really fine point on this piece. His article, too, kind of running in parallel with Greenwald. The media campaign to protect Joe Biden passes the point of absurdity. And he nails it by saying, the line between the intelligence community and commercial media has blurred to the point of meaninglessness. Everyone knows they screwed this up and are long past pretending to care. These are shocking words. I mean, we're looking at kind of almost like a media coup. We know how bad the media can be here in the United States, but it really rises to another level here. And the reporting now it looks like they're trying to. The media is coming around. I'm seeing reporting at CNN and other big outlets that spiked this story and lied about it. Essentially, they're really circling around Joe Biden, saying, "Well, this is his son's issues. There may be some tax evasion situation, but Joe Biden has nothing to do with this." So that looks like the talking point we're seeing right now. But this story took a crazy twist at the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is what it looked like. This was Victoria Nuland. She's a senior White House official, and she was questioned by Ted Cruz at a Senate hearing committee. Listen to this.
Does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
Of course, that wasn't Ted Cruz. That was Mark Rubio questioning there.
That's right.
But yeah, all right. So continue. I'm not going to interject. Where is this story going? It's starting to get a little bit scared.
It's a
I'm
wild.
already scared. I'm already scared.
It's a wild story. So 3 days after that, the WHO came out, and this was in Reuters. This was the headline here. WHO says it advised Ukraine to destroy pathogens in health labs to prevent disease spread. So the WHO is saying, look, these things do exist, and we need to get this taken care of because there is a Russian invasion happening right now. But here's where the twist comes back into the Hunter Biden laptop. This was again the New York Post just recently. Hunter Biden helped secure funds for U.S. biolab contractor in Ukraine. Emails. Daily Mail, similar reporting. Hunter Biden did help secure millions in funding for U.S. contractor in Ukraine specializing in deadly pathogen research. Laptop emails reveal. Now let's look at a couple of those emails. We have the first one from Mary Gutierrez. She's a vice president at a place called Metabiota. And she says here, as promised, I've prepared the attached memo, which provides an overview of Metabiota, our engagement in Ukraine, and how we can potentially leverage our team, networks, and concepts to assist Ukraine's cultural and economic independence from Russia and continued integration into Western society. So here you have someone from a biolab talking about integrating Ukraine into Western society, speaking with Hunter Biden. And then we have another email. This was again from the laptop, as reported by The Guardian there. This was from Vadim Posharsky, and he is this shady oligarch go-between between that Burisma oil company. And he says here, please find few initial points to be discussed for purposes of analyzing the potential of this, as you called, Science Ukraine project. Now he's talking about DoD financing. He's talking about partnerships in governmental players in Kiev. I mean, this thing wraps on so many levels. It's mind-boggling. But these were in 2014, and sure enough, also in 2014, there was a Department of Defense, a DoD contract that was given to Metabiota. And this is it right here. Department of Defense awarding a contract to Metabiota, $23.9 million starting in 2014, ending in 2016. And there is a subsection of that, $307,000 basically to exercise an option Ukraine research projects. So since that's a whole separate level of this story. But since 2014, Metabiota has also partnered with EcoHealth Alliance to do a project called Predict, and it's basically predicting global emerging disease threats.
Sure.
So we have this link here. So let's go back just really quickly as we round this story up to Veterans Today. Last year, they wrote an article. We heard that the idea of Ukraine biolabs funded by the United States was a Russian disinformation. Well, this is a story. This was a journalist. She was also censored. She's a Bulgarian journalist that wrote all of this info here. Dilyana Gutizara. She says here, this is the title, the DoD Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA, has funded 11 biolaboratories in the former Soviet Union country, Ukraine, bordering on Russia. And that is happening right now. And then we just have this final story here. Another outlet that had been out front for over a year here was the National Pulse, especially writers Natalie Winters and Rahim Kassam. Their recent title, check this one out. It's very, very in-depth, as most of their stories are on this. Hunter Biden biofirm partnered with Ukrainian researchers isolating deadly pathogens using funds from Obama Defense Department. So again, there was a Predict program, Metabiota, EcoHealth Alliance. They were cooperating to surveilling diseases, especially zoonotic diseases. This story has so many twists and turns. I have a feeling we're going to be really biting into this a lot harder now, and just seeing how the media is going to try to spin this at this point is fascinating.
And just so we see the map of the laboratories, here they are as they exist in Ukraine. Of course, we have a full-on war taking place there. You have this cat and mouse game happening. Senators asking, do you think Russia is going to, start a bioweapon release and then try to blame it on the Ukraine, as though we need that idea floating out there in public? I'll just say this, Jeffrey. I'm at this point with the news. I don't know how to even talk about Russia and Ukraine. It bothers me, this conversation about, are you 100% sure Russia would release something and then blame it on Ukraine? I'm 100% sure. Really? 100% sure when you can't even tell me where this original bio attack came from? You're still, I guess, are we still in, what does the government think? I mean, does Mark Rubio still think this is like a bat or a pangolin that crossed the border and, mated with a cobra and somehow like put out this deadly virus? I mean, where are we at? How are you 100% sure about anything? And when we live in a time where our own U.S. government officials like Tony Fauci have been funding the Wuhan lab where it looks like this original pandemic started and then being caught lying about it, everybody's lying. And I'm living in a time now where I love the country I live in, the United States of America, but I don't trust anybody now. I mean, this all seems to be some globalist agenda. I'm starting to feel more and more like we're just a bunch of pieces in a Stratego game, and some big players are just, go ahead and have the media tell them this and tell them that, and we'll start a little skirmish while this is what's really going on. I want to just, because they'll try to spin this and say, I don't care about the Ukrainians that are dying. I care about death. I hate war. I'm against war any way that it exists. But boy, talk about a wag the dog moment. It just, everybody just forgot about COVID. Now we got biolabs. We got Hunter Biden laptops. And so for anyone that keeps asking me, Del, what are you going to talk about on the high wire now that COVID's over? Trust me, we're finding plenty to talk about.
And one thing's for sure, aside from all of those conversations, one thing is for sure, the independent media, independent journalists, and smaller outlets ate the mainstream corporate media's lunch on this story.
That's right.
As we have with the COVID narrative throughout the last 2 years. And so I think my advice to anybody trying to make heads or tails of this story is follow independent media, follow obviously your gut as well and your discernment, but look at these independent voices, read the National Post, look at Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi, New York Post, places that they tell you not to look at. Read what they're saying, not just what they're saying about what they're saying.
Yeah.
That's the important part of this. Make your own decisions.
And if Twitter censors it or Facebook censors it, I would make that important reading. Put that at the top of the list. That censorship is now, I think, the stamp of approval that somebody's on to something, like you have been the whole time. Jeffrey, you're amazing. You're doing amazing work. I mean, I watch the news. I see the biolabs. But the way you put that all together is just so fantastic. Thank you for bringing some clarity to that. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Del. Thank you.
All right, cool. See you next week. Look, if you like the work that Jeffrey's doing, sometimes he's breaking these stories even before it gets on the high wire at the Jackson Report. There it is. And, of course, we're putting these stories on our news page there. The website's been amazing. You're all really digging it. And, of course, you see that little donate button up there in the top corner. Anytime you want to help us with the work we're doing here, we are being censored. We are being attacked. We are suing. We're doing everything we can to make a difference. We're winning. You're making that possible. But we need your help. This is the biggest fight of our lives. It's not going away. Even though some of you may be taking a spring vacation to a beach somewhere, here at the High Wire, we are fighting for your future and the future of humanity. So help us do that work by donating now. We're asking $22 for 2022. It really makes a difference to know, not just like we love those donations that come in one at a time, but when we know where we're going, it allows us to know how many lawsuits and things we can take on, how many reports we can do. Can I send a reporter out to get a story? All of that you're making possible.